This is a video about Thor Love and Thunder. There are spoilers. Please bookmark this and come back whenever you've watched the film. Essentially, this is a meditation on godhood. The series of events that Thor must endure during his apotheosis to supplant Odin as the new man of the house, as it were. You know, he is supposed to be the new ruler of Asgard. He abdicated his throne. Fair, fine. However, whatever being he is, if you want to say that he is a god, fine. But whatever type of being he is, these beings have a life cycle. They may or may not be, like the Eternals are, immortal. But they seem to live long, long lives that might parallel human lives, but aren't necessarily equivalent. And one of the stages of maturation of a godlike race, as Thor is, maybe even Gorr, seems to be at that level the ability to become an even higher level of a god, whatever that means. Or alternatively, to be able to do things inherent to your race or being that seem like acts of God to lesser or lower, forgive the terminology, life forms. There seems to be an opportunity, in my mind, to have spoken about Gorr's journey to the center of the universe, to eternity, in a more abstract sense, and then relate that as a story to humans or Asgardian children that on the one hand would most definitely be dealing with abstract concepts like dreams, hopes, aspirations, concepts like eternity itself, and on the other hand be quite literal, such that talking about one was talking about the other, because you're a god. This harkens back for me to the ability of most gods to do something to create life. And some of the simplest forms of that comes in speaking the world into existence, or thinking the world into existence, or dreaming the world into existence. There's a thought experiment about the potential that we are just figments of an imagination running wild in the dreaming state of a slumbering God, and that our only hope for continuation of our existence is to hope that that God does not awaken. And we are supposing human logic to this action, in that we assume that gods like us stop dreaming once they are awake. That the waking state and the dreaming state are mutually exclusive, when that itself is a human limitation. It might not be true for gods. And that is what I refer to as Thor being a god, still being able to achieve apotheosis, to transform into a being whose thoughts create reality. Imagine, if you will, you are you, and you have needs like, I need to eat. And the mere thought of hunger produces food. Edible food, sustenance, whatever, that you can consume and then continue on living. That is a very simple metaphor for what I would imagine to be a low-level God. A being that, once it exists, can choose to exist indefinitely. Or that just might exist indefinitely, regardless of how it feels. There could be those gods, the gods that go mad at existence itself, thereby forming maybe the god or gods of the underworld that we see. Imagine immortality, when all you'd like to do is die. Couple onto that the fact that your mere thoughts can create reality. And the problem of a mad god, however slight, is incalculable. And these thoughts, right, are, for me, generated from watching this movie. I have ignored the entirety of the plot, which was pretty good. It is a good movie. As a father, it resonated within me something fierce. And as a child of the 80s, I thoroughly enjoyed the entire aesthetic. Taika Waititi did a great job. But it inevitably led me to stumble upon a proof for why all gods must by force be at least indifferent, if not outright benevolent, to the existence of other beings. Or that these gods also must mature into something other than destructive and or quote-unquote evil. It is a movie inherently about life and death and the cycles of both, and how they themselves lead us to do the things we do, which include grow into different beings. And I've not even touched upon the fact that both Mjolnir and Stormbreaker are sentient. And the little quips and asides to them both um, aren't delved into at all, really. We have a surface level understanding of sentient objects, complicated by the fact that these sentient objects are themselves also created by godlike beings, which would suggest at the very least that they are equivalent in value because they are alive, or perhaps because they are sentient and unalive, neither alive nor dead, and that sentient objects only differ between humans because they cannot die. That's a whole other video to unpack all of that. But my goal is to make a cut of the movie once it comes out on Blu-ray to play with these concepts to make them more real, to toy with time and space within that movie, within that film, to drive home what life is to a god. Anyway.